Hey everybody, welcome back. So those of us that keep reptiles, whether it be snakes or lizards and big snakes particularly, always get the questions. Does it bite? Aren't you afraid of getting bit? What do you do if it bites you? And we get these questions from people that don't keep reptiles at all the way up to, newer keepers that haven't had the pleasure of experiencing these things. So this is a really good opportunity to show you guys some surprise footage that I got the other day. Just recording with my cell phone an interaction with my 6-foot Nile monitor back here. And out of the blue, after about 2.5 years, he decided to bite me again. And this is also a really good opportunity to compare what it's like when it really happens. Really? And contrast that experience with what you might see on TV.
Ready?
Now this is a reality that all of us reptile keepers have to be aware of, have to know how to manage, and even for folks that don't keep reptiles, if you're out and you see something loose, if you're in a position where you've got to try and move it or handle it or something like that, you need to kind of know what to expect. So all of this stuff ties in together, and that's what we're going to talk about today on Intrepid Exotics. Whether you're a lifelong keeper or just getting started, help us encourage responsible keeping, conservation, and public education in the interest of keeping our reptiles safe and healthy as we protect them for future generations. You're invited to spend time with us as we experience these awesome animals together on Intrepid Exotics. Now this topic about talking about bites can tend to be pretty controversial. Some people just don't want to talk about it. They don't want to put our animals in a bad light, and that's completely understandable. That being said, when people ask us, does it bite? Our response is always, if it has teeth, it can bite. I don't care whether you're talking about a prairie dog, a cat, a horse. Been bitten by those a couple times, and it's pretty nasty as well. So it's something that we've got to be aware of as a possibility. We've got to understand what can happen. We've got to understand how we go about managing and getting an animal to release once it latches on, and that can be different depending on what species it is. Now we're talking specifically today about Nile monitors. And for those of you that may not be incredibly familiar with them, Nile monitors are among the largest lizards in the world. You're going to see larger ones like Komodo dragons, crocodile monitors, Asian water monitors, and Nile monitors fall in right about under that. You can expect adults to get 6, maybe up to 7 feet sometimes, and they're an African monitor. For those of us that keep these animals, you'll see a lot of folks with, for instance, Asian water monitors, which tend to be a lot more tractable. Those, of course, as the name suggests, are Asian. The Nile monitors are African monitors, and I think kind of the consensus is we attribute the Nile monitor disposition to the environment that it lives in, that it comes from. Asian water monitors are kind of the top of the food chain out there. They're a little bit bigger, they're a little bit more tractable, and a little bit easier to socialize. So you'll see a lot of folks keeping those. They require a lot of space, so that's kind of the biggest factor that prevents a lot of people from getting them. They may get smaller things like, Ackie monitors and stuff like that, little tree monitors, which are also really cool. But Nile monitors, being an African monitor, they live in an environment where they're constantly predated. Niles have a naturally defensive and a temperament that they aren't afraid of anything. This Nile monitor back here, I've had him since he was a hatchling. They can be really sensitive to changes in their environment sometimes. They go through their growing pains, their adolescent years where they start to realize how tough they are. And this animal, I've got a lot of respect for him because he just, even as docile as he is, and I can work with him, I can put him outside on a harness and walk around with him, I can get in here and interact. But Niles can tend to be a little bit more reactive. And you see a lot of folks here recently, especially, a couple friends of mine have taken in Nile monitors that have either been dumped off or have been injured, and they've rehabbed them and things like that. They're coming up asking me about these guys, and you really want to make sure that we're expressing the most realistic picture of what it's like to work with these guys. So without going into the whole series, which I've already done, a series on the Nile Monitors, and you can check that out in the end screen. I'll make sure that I put that in there. But right now we're talking about their reactivity and a bite. So the other day I was in here, just out of the blue, got hit. I just happened to be sitting here with my cell phone, recording the interaction between him and I, because for the last couple years it's been really peaceful, real easy. He hasn't tried to take a swing at me in a while. And just out of the blue, he looked over and he decided to take a chunk out of me. And not necessarily take a chunk. He took a chomp at me. Now, before I show you the video of the bite that I had to manage with this guy, I want to kind of go into the fact that people will use bite videos and things like that to draw attention to themselves. More views, more money, all this other stuff. I mean, there's really only two reasons to put out something on bites. And that is, you're either trying to draw attention or you're trying to educate people on it. So my goal here is strictly from an educational perspective. And I also want to kind of compare and contrast. So there's a video out from some guys, they call themselves the Kings of Pain. And that may or may not really be appropriate. I don't know if they deal with it in a regal manner or not, but you can make that judgment for yourself. But this is one thing where these instances with animal bites and stuff like that can get blown out of proportion and can get really dramatized, just to draw attention and just to draw people in to watch. And it's entertaining. Who doesn't like to see somebody with a 6-foot monitor lizard attached to them, yelling and hollering and all that? But unfortunately, it doesn't do a whole lot to, one, generate a kind of a realistic impression of how we work with these animals and how we manage it. And to everybody else in the general public that doesn't work with these animals, it goes a long ways towards just enhancing the fear that they feel about reptiles in general. And that's not good for anybody. We really want to work in reality and how things really work. So I kind of got a kick out of this. I'm going to play this little clip of these guys and just kind of take note. This lizard that they're dealing with is about the same size as Nile's here. So everything's really comparable. So we're going to show a direct comparison between how the media portrays this stuff and how people will use this stuff to get attention, how it really goes down after that, and how we really manage them. Just for folks that particularly have these animals or are coming into or considering getting one, it's really important that we understand how to manage this stuff. So check this out.
Look at the dent in your arm, man.
Yeah, I see it. Dude, that thing just did not give up.
One thing about monitor lizards, and snakes will do this too, when they bite, they do not want to release. Nile's here, just like the lizard in that video. They latch on and they just want to stay there. They don't want to let go. So it can be unnerving because you get something just completely latched onto you and it doesn't want to let go. But there's ways to go about managing that. Now, of course, paying attention to the after effects, what the bites look like after these guys after they released, and looking at the little holes in their arms and a little bit of blood here. I want you to pay attention to this video of the actual bite that I was managing with Niles here, and just take note of some of the major differences there. What's up, buddy? He's a good boy. Really? Really? Okay. Little incident with Niles. He decided he wanted to take a bite out of me today. So that's what it looks like. Took me about, I don't know, a minute to get him off of me. But yeah, fun stuff. I'm going to show you guys what a bite from a 6-foot Nile monitor looks like right after it happens. Went in this morning, was just kind of sitting with him, and he felt froggy. He hung on for about a good minute or so. I just got it cleaned up, sprayed some Listerine in it and so forth, and you can see where he adjusted his mouth a couple times there trying to hang on. But yeah, fun stuff this morning. Just goes to show, man, no matter how good of a relationship you got with these guys, sometimes they can get squirrely. Always be careful, always stay on your toes when you're working with big monitor lizards. Now bear in mind too, when I put this video up, there was about a minute of utter silence in there, because as soon as he bit me, I set the camera down and I started managing the bite. That's the bad thing about not having anybody else here to film for me, and it wasn't planned, of course. So there's about a minute there of complete silence where the phone's just sitting on his basking platform staring up at the ceiling. But I did include here towards the end of the video the entire uncut thing so that you can see exactly what it sounds like when we're managing a Nile monitor bite. So I'm sure you guys can see a pretty dramatic difference there. You know, I'm in here by myself. I wasn't doing anything for public consumption. I was just, you know, recording me spending some time with my lizard. And the last time that he'd bitten me, like I said, it was about 2.5 years ago. And that was completely my fault. I reached into his enclosure unannounced, just picked him up, set him on my shoulder, and he decided to put my spine in his mouth. And he bit me on the back of the neck, and he held on for about a good 5 minutes or so. A very uncomfortable experience. Again, another reason why we've got to understand how to manage these things when they happen. When a monitor lizard bites, it's not like a cat or a dog. It's not going to do that kind of damage. If you look at your cat and your dog, they've got the really long canines. They are meant to puncture and puncture deep. With monitor lizards, they've got teeth, but they're very small. Now, how this ends up working is I like to compare it to a hacksaw. If you take a hacksaw with those really small teeth that are meant to cut metal, and you push it down on your arm, you can push it down pretty hard. You know, you can keep a lot of pressure on there and pull it off. You're going to see a little bit of divots and marks. But if you hold that hacksaw down on your arm and keep that pressure on it and then drag it across, it's going to open you right up. And it's the same way monitor lizard teeth work. So when they get a hold of you, just like with a snake, your priority is to try and immobilize that head as much as you can, because they will thrash and twist and tear, and it's just going to exacerbate that injury and make it a lot worse in the end. So it's really important, if we're working with our animals and one of them gets a hold of us, you immediately have to just calm yourself down. Don't stress out. Don't get excited. Don't start fighting. This is your time where you understand that the more in control you are, and the more you can control that animal and stay calm, the easier it's going to be to manage the bite, the better it's going to be, and the less it's going to stress out the animal, because of course as keepers we want to focus on trying to minimize the impact on the animal too when there's an incident like that. We're kind of limited to what we can do sometimes, but when they get a hold of you, it's really important you stabilize them. So right after he bit me, the first thing I did, of course, set my phone down, and he was up on his, he wasn't up on his basking platform, he was kind of coming around. So I got him down onto the floor, and I made sure that all of his weight was supported on the floor, and I just held him right behind the head. So he's got a hold of me like this. I've got my hand right here, right behind his jaw, and kind of leaning down on his body a little bit and holding his head, and you got to be careful. You don't want to hurt him. You don't strangle him. You don't try and choke him out. But you just got to secure that and wait it out. And you wait and you wait and you wait, and sooner or later, he's going to release. As soon as he releases, then you're good. You go ahead and get away from him. You leave him alone. You let him relax and all that stuff. And it's really important, especially if this is your animal, that you don't let that frighten you out of working with them and handling them. Because things happen. You know, even my most docile snakes down here, if I make a mistake and I do something wrong, if I approach them when they've got an active food response or something and they bite me, then, you know, that's on me. It's not malicious on behalf of the animal, but it can have an impact on them. You've got to keep working with them. You can't let it make you afraid. And it gets easier over time after you've had a couple bites and you've managed it and you've seen what the after effects is. You get a little bit less anxiety about getting bit because you understand, you know, it might get a hold of me. It might hurt a little bit. I might have to wrap a bandage around it for a little while. But other than that, you can see on the video, you know, immediately afterwards, there was blood and all kinds of saliva on there from him. Which brings me to another point. the point of monitor lizards being venomous. Now, it's my understanding, biologically, that monitor lizards are venomous. They have some remnants of venom glands, things like that. Supposed to be an anticoagulant in their saliva. Now, I've been bitten several times by monitor lizards. I have never had any adverse reactions to it at all. And I am hypersensitive to bee stings at this point. So if I get stung by a bee, it blows up. So I know I've already got a hypersensitivity. And just like with this bite, all that saliva in there, all those little open wounds, I went over, I wiped it off, sprayed it down with Listerine, wiped it off again, and the bleeding didn't last an unreasonable amount of time. And I didn't have any unusual redness or pain or anything like that you might associate with a venom or a toxin of some sort of an irritant. So I guess biologically you can say they are venomous to some degree, but practically I've never experienced any kind of a venomous reaction to a monitor bite. Even when he had me in a sensitive spot like the back of my neck, yeah, it hurt, but when he released, I wiped it off, good to go. So I wouldn't stress that too much. That being said, maybe you can have some kind of hypersensitivity to something in their saliva. Maybe there is just enough venom in there to where if somebody's really, really hypersensitive to stuff, it may affect them. So don't completely dismiss it. But from my personal experience, I haven't had any problems with it, and it all healed up pretty quickly. This bite right here has been about maybe 2 weeks ago now, and you could just barely see a couple. It's not even worth putting on a camera. I mean, you really got to examine it and know where he bit me in order to see it. Now, kind of a quick note here too. One of the reasons why I got bit with Niles, and this is an important part, anytime we get bitten by our snake, by our lizard, by anything, we need to understand that it's our fault as the keeper. We're the reason we got bit. We did something different, we did something wrong. So anytime you get bit, don't ever just look at the animal and go, oh, you're a bastard. And that's it. You know, we're the keeper. We're the ones that are responsible for understanding them, their behavior, and adjusting our behavior to make it a nice, peaceful interaction. So that being said, this was entirely my fault when he got me. And I remember very specifically what was going through my head right before this bite happened. Because ever since he had gotten a hold of the back of my neck, as you can imagine, I've been kind of gun-shy handling him. I've been really cautious. I pay really close attention to every little bit of body language and any behavior. And I adjust accordingly to make sure that I'm completely, removing the possibility of him being able to get a hold of me. After a couple years, I get a little bit comfortable, and I remember thinking to myself, you know what? He's been doing really well. I'm going to relax a little bit and just kind of ignore him and let him do his own thing, and, started paying a little bit of attention to him and all that stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to trust him to not bite me. And that was what was going through my head. And I remember very vividly looking down at him. And as soon as he started to turn his head towards my hand, that's a time when I normally would have pulled away. I would have pulled away. I would have guided him off just really slowly. I would have done something to just kind of diffuse that whole situation to make sure that there wasn't any chance that he was going to get a hold of me. And I had that thought. I recognized it. And it was a conscious decision on my part to trust him and just say, okay, we're going to let this ride. I think he'll be okay. I let it ride. It wasn't okay. He got a hold of me. Yeah, I could have very easily avoided that bite. And moving forward in the future, it's going to be another couple years before I let myself really relax. We're going to continue working with him, continue interacting with him, and just, you know, he is what he is. This particular animal, Niles, is very spirited. He has zero fear. You cannot frighten this thing. He will, if there's anything that he doesn't like, that makes him feel uncomfortable, he goes straight into fight mode. He doesn't have a flight mode or a freeze mode. He is just, if he sees it, he's like, I'm going to win. I've got so much respect for that spirit in this animal. I definitely don't want to break him. And we do pretty good most of the time from a socialization perspective. But yeah, it's something you got to understand. Some animals, you'll see some Nile monitors that are puppy dog tame, that you can trust with anybody, and they just cruise around, do their own thing. Some animals, no matter how hard you work with them, are still going to have a little bit of an edge to them, and just like he does. And, you know, we manage it the best we can. But I love this guy. I've had him since he was a baby. And we've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of hours together. So I wouldn't trade him for nothing. You get bit, things happen. And it's really important, like I said, for us as keepers to just understand, you know, how we need to manage these things, what to do if it happens, how we can help somebody else if we see them getting bit and whatnot. But don't, you know, for those of you guys that don't keep any reptiles and you're just kind of looking at this, trying to see what's going on through our heads, how crazy we are with dealing with these animals, it's really not that bad. So don't let this, you know, the reality TV stuff fool you. These guys do this stuff and they blow everything way out of proportion just to get attention. Those of us that actually keep these animals, it's not the attention. It's not, I mean, we love working with the animals. And those of us that are a little bit more experienced working with stuff, it's incumbent on us to help newer keepers or help people that are looking at getting into different species. You know, you can keep 300 ball pythons your whole life, but you're not prepared to work with an adult reticulated python. It's a different dynamic, a different size, different temperament, different intelligence in the animal, just like you can have leopard geckos and keep hundreds of those forever. That doesn't make you prepared to manage a monitor lizard. So, I mean, you can be a subject matter expert on certain species of reptiles, but when you start getting into the larger snakes and the larger lizards, the mentorship is really, really important. I didn't learn all of this stuff just out of the blue. I wasn't born with this. I looked up a gentleman named Rob Faust who wrote a book on Nile monitors, who's kept him and raised him his entire life, and spent a whole lot of time listening to his advice and implementing the things that we had talked about that worked really well. There's also another gentleman by the name of Kevin McCurley from New England Reptile Distributors. He's got a lot of videos out on socializing monitor lizards and snakes. He's not afraid to breach just about any topic at all. And he's a really good resource too. So it's not just, you know, don't just watch my videos and think, okay, well, Tim says this, we're all good, because there's different ways of doing things. I'm not the most experienced person out there. There's people that know more. So I encourage everybody, you know, take my stuff. Cool. I don't put anything out unless I know it to be true and I've practiced it before. But like I said, there's other people to draw information from, and it's really important to do that with everything. You know, watch my stuff. Please do get down, get subscribed to the channel, like the video, comment on it, all that stuff. The channel's growing, and it's great to see. But, you know, get out there and watch these other people too. Listen to what they've got to say. Because cumulatively, if you take all that knowledge and experience and you put it together and you start applying all that stuff to your own practices, it's going to make everything so much better for you. And it makes it better for the community too, because, you know, we are more competent and more capable to prevent really bad things from happening, which prevents the bad press that comes to reptile keepers. People that don't keep these animals, we're not giving them fuel for their fear fires on these. We're actually showing them positive interactions and things like that. Even if we got to talk about bites sometimes, because they happen. But again, it's something that we got to talk about. And It's just kind of coincidental. I took this bite before the Jeffrey Leibowitz thing where he got bitten by that inland taipan. And of course, the last video that I put out before this one was about that bite and what we need to do. Which is, I think is pretty important too, where I really express a lot of my views about how we as a community can help improve things and how we can keep each other off of the 5 o'clock news. So it's not like this period of time is just like, okay, bites are the topic. This is what we're hitting. I've been wanting to put this out ever since it happened because I was like, this is a really good opportunity to show the difference. So just coincidence. But the next video that I'm planning on putting out, I want to put out some more stuff on one more episode on the reticulated python behavior. We've got a series on behaviors, and I think the last one that I've got is going to go into a lot of detail on like thinking and exploration mode. Probably tie that together with some hook training stuff and see if I can answer some of the questions that I've gotten recently and kind of tie all that stuff together in that video as well. So, you guys don't want to listen to me bump my gums all day long. I appreciate you hanging out. Again, jump down, get subscribed to the channel. We're growing. It helps. Every Saturday night, we do a live stream at 7 o'clock Eastern, followed by a Zoom meetup call for all of our contributing Patreon members, which is a lot of fun. We've got a lot of great folks in there. There's some awesome animals, a whole plethora of knowledge in there. And it's really great after the live streams to just get together. Everybody gets on camera, shows their animals, asks questions, answers questions. I learn things in there. Everybody else learns things in there from everybody else. And it's a lot of fun. So the Patreon link is also down in the description of all my videos. Get down there, man. The support really helps the channel, especially since we don't do any breeding or selling or anything like that. The only thing we're working on selling now is prints from our wildlife photography that I'm ironing out, trying to find the best quality means of delivering all that stuff. And I'll put the latest wildlife photography video in the end screen as well, along with the Nile Monitor series. So jump down to comments, let me know what you think. If you got any more questions, let me know those. And you guys have an outstanding and safe rest of the week. And we will talk to you guys next time on Intrepid Exotics. What's up, buddy? Really? Really? Let go. Let go. Let go. Niles. Niles, let go. Let go. Let go. No. Okay. Little incident with Niles. He decided he wanted to take a bite out of me today. So that's what it looks like. Took me about, I don't know, a minute to get him off of me. But yeah, fun stuff.